only on the coastline. Most of the cities are on the western, southern coastline, but also there are some on the north, like Cairns, which is situated vis-a-vis the Papua New Guinea, and has, because of its very tropical climate, and totally different when it comes to the climate. The Perth, of course, which is also in the north. But most of the cities are in the south, and because of that, Australia is very well positioned strategically. Only very small terrain was in real danger from foreign invasion, like for instance the city of Darwin was bombarded and was raided by the Japanese aeroplanes during World War II, and because of that the Australians were not very keen on giving more soldiers to the main bulk of Commonwealth soldiery, and to give more soldiers to England and to fight on the desert. They were fighting remarkably well on the desert, because they have desert in their own homeland, so they were totally fantastically doing, for instance, at Tobruk against the German and Italian troops commanded by Erwin Rommel, and so they were in World War I. They were put against the Turks and sent to very, very highly dangerous missions, and they have remembered it. But the main reason why they were not so keen on giving more soldiers to the European front in World War II was that they were feeling also the danger from the Japanese. They wanted to have some soldiers to protect their own soil. After World War II, they were rather cooperating with Americans, and they were like a little bit like Polish people, that they like to participate in wars and have soldiers trained in the real combat conditions, like they have participated not only in the Korean War but also in Vietnam War, which is not a very commonly known fact. Among the stereotypes, but about the stereotypes about the secluded areas and about people vanishing in very suspicious circumstances, there is something really, some motive very present in Australian culture. Australia is not so much known for very good singers and musicians, but it's very, among the great composers, only Alexander McDowell is probably to be mentioned, but from the mostly 19th century, maybe the beginning of the 20th century, but mostly they are not for music but for the cinema. Australia is very much known for the cinema, and not only Peter Weir but also Mel Gibson, but also Nicole Kidman and so on, both creators and actors. And in case of Mel Gibson, both creator and actor. But Peter Weir has made a famous film, The Picnic Under a Hanging Rock, and this motive about the vanishing in very suspicious circumstances in a secluded area. This motive was presented indeed, so no wonder that we relate to this when we are talking about Australian culture. And Australian culture is, and I observed it during the lecture, that the students are really fascinated by the whole topic of Australian culture and Australian stereotypes, because the Australian people, they are very easily stereotypically presented, far better, far easier than Canadians, which are divided into the Frenchies and the Scots, so to speak, and far easier than Americans, which are the melting pot of all the cultures. But the Australians are probably even more easy to be presented in a stereotypical way, very stereotypical, average, smiling, loving, going to hanging in bars and so on, Australian men and so on. This is a very popular stereotype, and it's to some extent true, because they are descendants mostly of the English, not only the British, but also specifically the English. So to some extent we can say that Australia is even more English than the British Isles are English, because the percentage of Englishness in there is very, whereas in America the Scots were